After 6 months, Tecno has updated their popular Pova 5 Pro with the new Pova 6 Pro. If you can tell, this is still the same unapologetically gamer-centric phone that targets budgeted consumers. Although the back design has drastically changed, the innards or the specs you get are similar if not identical to the predecessor. On the other end, there are meaningful upgrades here that make the overall experience a bit better now that this phone is 1,000 peso more expensive than last year. It now costs 11,999 pesos. But for that slight price bump, you're getting a better camera, more RAM, a bigger battery, and finally, an AMOLED display. So shall we start with that first? When we reviewed the Pova 5 Pro, the main catch was the LCD. LCD isn't bad per se, but when you have cheaper phones launching with AMOLED, it makes you think if you're getting your money's worth. So now, the Pova 6 Pro is rocking an AMOLED panel while retaining the same 6.7-inch panel. Aside from getting more accurate colors and a vibrant screen, it's also 2 times brighter, so from 580 nits, the peak brightness reaches 1300 nits. It is worth noting that peak brightness only applies to HDR content, so when you're not watching or viewing HDR photos or videos, you're getting almost 600 nits in max brightness mode. For the price, it's not bad. It's still usable and viewable outdoors, but in direct sunlight, you might see yourself squinting. Nevertheless, it's a better panel now, and consuming content is also better. It still has the same 1080p resolution, the same 120Hz refresh rate, but the chin bezel is now thinner, almost matching the size of the top bezel. It's a small thing, but it makes the front panel look less cheap. The back side is equally as interesting as the front side because the Pova 5 Pro is still one of the few affordable phones that has LED in the back. As far as the lighting goes, Pova just adjusted the position of the LEDs, so instead of running across the back, it's now installed within the camera hump. What's more interesting is they made one of the camera modules light up as well. They did update the look, but to be honest with you, I prefer the design of the 5 Pro. By now, you should know that these are just stickers or the film that gets applied under the plastic frame. But with the Pova 6 Pro, the cheap-looking print easily gives it away. I mean, in person, this battery font looks really cheap. Functionally speaking, the Pova 6 Pro's LED, aka dynamic light effect, expands on what you can do with the previous model. So first, you have more effects to choose from, so from 5 now it's 8, but at the expense of colored LEDs. Previously there were 5 colors, but here it's just white, nothing else. The lights are divided into 2 parts, the camera ring and this abstract pattern. There's a toggle called Party Mode that lets you turn on the LEDs all the time if that's what you're into. But second, you can now set different light patterns when there's an incoming notification. But these are currently limited to the most popular apps at the moment, and you can only assign light patterns between recorded contacts and unknown contacts. Third, the lights also serve as a countdown indicator when taking timed photos. And lastly, you can set the phone to flip to mute and let the light serve as your notification indicator. There are a few more functions, but these are, I think, the ones that may become popular to most users. Also, Pova managed to make this phone IP53 rated, so it should be able to survive a splash of water with no problem. That's for the lights on the back. Now, what about the cameras? The Pova 6 Pro may look like it has 3 useful cameras, but in practice, the main camera is the only useful lens. The other 2 are portrait and auxiliary lenses, but the jump from 50 megapixel to 100 megapixel surely does have its advantages. I mean, for starters, the photos are noticeably better when it comes to overall quality. I'm noticing better HDR, better colors, and definitely better sharpness. Provided the Pova 6 Pro is a gaming-centric phone, the cameras are above average at their best. But when it comes to videos, even when you go up to 1440p, it still doesn't look good. I would say they are functional at best. Enough about the cameras, you're probably here for the performance. The Pova 6 Pro performs similarly to last year since they are using the same chipset, which is the Dimensity 6080. As I said before, the 6080 is a good performer in single tasks and old game titles only. If you're expecting better performance in games with the Pova 6 Pro, I'm shattering your expectations right now. You're not getting that here. However, because the RAM has been upgraded to 12 gigabytes, the software feels a little more stable than before. With the extra resources, the phone shows minimal lags and stutters. With the Pova 5 Pro and its 8 GB RAM, the phone will lag when you have a video playing in the foreground. Here, it's not as bad because the phone trickles back to 60 Hz to minimize stutters. Yes, it still slows down from time to time, as seen from the typical frame drops when switching between resource-heavy apps and when scrolling in shopping apps, but that's to be expected at this price point. The best thing is that this feels fast enough, so you won't feel like you're always waiting for an app to load. The Pova 5 Pro also has this continuous wallpaper switching from AOAD to the home wallpaper. It's called General Live Wallpaper. Although the idea is nice, the transitions happens at a low refresh rate, so it makes the phone feel slow. It would be better if just maintain 120 Hz or at least 60 Hz. But just like any Android skin, iOS has a ton of features hiding in the settings. I do appreciate the fact that software is a bit cleaner now, albeit with ads on first-party apps but at least it's a bit easier to find things now. I recently noticed Tecno has tons of controls provided to users when it comes to battery, probably the most out of all the skins I've tested. But what really stood out to me, aside from the bypass charging they introduced last year, you can throttle the charging speed to lessen the heat output that affects the battery cell. The use of AI to learn your usage habits to reduce battery aging, and you can set some power consuming features to turn off automatically when you reach a certain power level or a battery level. But speaking of battery, Tecno has drastically upgraded the size of the Pova 6 Pro. The size now is 6000 mAh, and that is coupled with a 70-watt charging brick in the box that sees this phone go from 0 to 100 in just 15 minutes. By the way, who gets free headphones nowadays in the box? So that's a nice touch for Tecno to add for users. But as far as my usage goes, I consistently get 8 hours of screen time at the very least. That's mostly watching videos, browsing, and with the dynamic lighting on. This is probably enough to last a full day of use and some the next day. And for a 6000 mAh cell, this is relatively light and thin. For the price of this phone, you're still getting a handful of meaningful upgrades that improve the user experience. You still even have a dedicated micro SD slot here, as well as a headphone jack. The stereo speakers are decently loud, albeit lacking bass, but at least it's not bad. The Pova 6 Pro is essentially a matured and better version of the Pova 5 Pro that summates an overall better phone experience with a bit of fun. For the budget gamers, there is only one reason for you to not get this phone. That is if you're looking for better performance with the games you're playing right now. You're gonna have to wait another 6 months and hope that Pova releases the successor with a better chipset, since using the 6080 for a third time might not bode well for them. But that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. And as always, until the next one, stay safe.